Hi, everyone. Mike White here. Welcome to this week's vlog post. Another volatile week in the markets, lots of information, lots of data hitting the streets, market reactions. We've talked about this quite a bit. It's not going away. We're going to keep plugging at this until the markets and the economy find its path and everybody gets a clear idea of what that path really is and what it looks like. Clearly, rates going higher are putting some pressure, certainly on social media. I don't believe that the higher rates are putting as much pressure on the housing market, and for that fact, refinances as people would think. But I understand nobody likes higher rates. Nobody likes when things get more expensive. But the truth of the matter is, rates are not all that high. They're higher than they were recently, that's for sure. We understand that, and it's gone up quite dramatically. But you do, look at recent history, and I tell all my loan officers to sit with their clients or at least have available rate data. What were the average rates? Because people's perception of what reality is quite alarming. So, we sit here and say, okay, rates are going higher, but we go back to 2009 and rates were in the 5% range, and 2008 rates were in the 6% range. And to be fair, it was only 21 years ago when rates averaged in the 8% range. And again, I know to people, 21 years is, a long time, but it's still generational. There are plenty of people around, plenty of people in the business, plenty of people's experiences. It's not that long ago. I mean, for most people who are buying houses now, they have a very clear recollection of that point in time. And if you want to go back a little further and look at the things when we talk about interest rates, you can go back to the 90s when rates were 9%, 1990 itself. We saw double digits. And in fact, when I first got in the business, you look from 1979 through 1982, rates were in double digits. And 81 and 82, especially, rates were 16% plus, because I lived through those eras. I wrote loans in those times. And I understand what the markets looked like then, and yet people were buying houses. So yeah, rates are higher than they were recently, but take a look at the rates that people are customarily paying on their credit cards. Look at the balances of their accounts and what are the effective interest rates that they're paying on those cards. If rates were that sensitive, why would people be using credit cards that were 15, 20% or more in cost? And that's not the only thing that's been higher. We all are aware the effective cost of gasoline and food and inflation upon everything else has been enormous over the last year, and there's not much of a sign that we're going to see any backing off of price pressure. It's still going to go higher, and how much higher is hard to tell. The other thing is, when you're talking about home prices, you're talking about interest rates on mortgages. Don't leave out the cost of rent. Have you seen what rents have done? And I tell all my loan officers, you've got to go into your own market. You've got to look at what rents are doing. You got to see what the cost of housing is, because those things are not by themselves. So yes, interest rates are higher. I get it. But even though rates are higher, one of the things that I find amazing to me is the fact that we're still seeing a really large number of refinances. Now, granted, refinances are significantly off from what they were this time last year, probably in the neighborhood of 65, 70% down from what they were this time last year. But think back, this time last year, almost 70% of the mortgage business was refinances. That's quite a huge number of refinances. So to still have 30 or 35% of that business around, you have to look at this and say, well, there's still a pretty good chunk of business that's out there. Now, clearly it's not because people are lowering, quote unquote, their rate to lower their monthly payment on their house. But when you look at this, you got to put it into perspective and say, yes, higher rates are more than they were before, but does it make sense to refinance now and pay off other high cost debt? You can lower your total monthly payments by paying off all that other stuff, even though your principal and interest payment would be higher. Your total monthly payment would be lower. So what about that? The higher rates are there, but now people are in a position where over the last 2, 3, 4 years, they've got huge amounts of equity build in their properties. So what can we do about that situation and saying we've got that huge amount of equity in that house? It changes the difference, the scenery, the amount of money brought to the table in cash when it comes to people thinking about selling and moving. Because again, not everybody's living in a place that is as good for them as it could be. The other thing that we're looking at, and I've seen an increase in, and certainly not surprised, is the increased number of adjustable rate loans out there. The 5-1s, 7-1s, 10-1s are out there. They're available. They're coming back in vogue. Many of them are in the 4% range, which makes people more comfortable, and they can lock in their payment for 5, 7, or 10 years. And for them, that's a good balance of risk reward, getting a lower rate now to get into the deal, and knowing that down the road, 5, 7, 10 years, whatever, if their rates, if the market goes and their rate's going to go higher, again, we're not dealing with negative arm situations and teaser rates. We're dealing with things that are fully adjusted and margined from the beginning, so we all know what the cost could be. In 5 years or 7 years or 10 years, their income is going to be significantly higher, or at least it should be. And any change in monthly payment would be more than comfortably absorbed. As we all know, 100% of your income doesn't go to your housing payment. For most people, that's 25 or 30% or so of their monthly income going to their housing payment. So those loans are making more sense for more people. The other thing is again, there's some lenders out there that I've seen who are offering, hey, do your deal now. If rates go lower, we'll refinance your house for free. We're going to stay connected to you. We're going to make it happen. Once again, it's about understanding what the value is, that even with higher rates, the total payment or the outcome or the position compared to where it was, to that person who may refinance that house to do renovations, maybe they don't want to sell and move. Maybe they've just decided, hey, I can refinance, I can do a cash out refi, I can do the kitchen, I can add a bedroom, I can finish the basement, I can do what I need to do, and I'd be happy staying here. All of these things are possible. So I understand rates are higher, but that doesn't necessarily mean overall monthly payments have to be higher. And you have to stop and you have to do the math and you have to look at the big picture and understand, yes, it's more expensive now than it was before. But that brings a certain sense of awareness to the picture that may be helpful, especially if you're looking to help your customer navigate this situation and end up in their best possible position. As always, questions or comments, it's Mike at imtcoaching.com. Look forward to talking to you again next week. Take care.